Okay, hi and hello to all those Marxist-Leninists out there. And today I'm going to translate another lecture by the Workers' Academy Fund member, or vice president, Comrade Popov, Mikhail Popov, and the lecture name of the lecture is Prospects for the Revival of the Soviet Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. This was recorded on the 2nd of February 2023. I would like to begin with an analogy. You remember they used to say a ghost of communism is wandering in Europe. Of course, communism wasn't contained in in the heads of most of the people, but the ghost did wander. And if we look at the situation in modern Russia, then comparing what happened after the restoration of capitalism with the kind of life we had in the USSR, more and more people do that, compare that, and despite despite the fact that in bourgeois society, of course, a bourgeois ideology will dominate, and no speeches of ours, meetings of ours, and agitation in the newspapers and in the books, considering that there are tens or hundreds times less of them, tens or hundreds times less copies of them than the bourgeois ones, or by speeches, videos in internet, that there's quite a lot of them. For example, I have a speech on a video on fascism, considering the denazification. There's like a million views, but all of this seems big from the point of view of our own possibilities that we have, abilities that we have. But looking from the point of view of the bourgeoisie, it makes no difference. They got 100, 200 million million of views or copies, and it's got newspapers and TV and radio it owns, and a mass of a lot of different resources and internet sites and internet. But let us not chase or pursue the goal of getting the layman on our side. We won't actually reach that, but we will try and pursue the goal of making steps towards the direction of revival of the Soviet Union and socialism. I think that the history of the Russian working movement itself shows that this movement didn't start from victories, but it started from a big defeat. Don't you agree? The first Russian Revolution in 1905. And it was a revolution that already used the discovery made by the working class, not by some average, layman, just some people, very educated ones, but by a discovery of the working class that was, and the essence of this discovery was that on the basis of the strike committees that have the power, they can stop the work on a factory, on factories, or on a factory. So based on these strike committees, the discovery was to create the organs or the bodies, an organ that would coordinate their actions. And then it enables the workers to utilize this in the scale of a city, at a city scale. At a city scale, pursue or fulfill their interests. And then they can withstand to the state power, to the bourgeois power. And this development of the Soviets went on so quickly, although it seemed that no one is really blocking the people in other countries from using this experience. They don't use this experience very much. So this thing started happening so quickly that already in December 1905, an armed uprising happened in Moscow that was led by the Moscow Soviet Council of the Workers. So what kind of revolution could happen in that period? Could a socialist revolution happen in that period? No. Why? Because there still was because the system, the framework was feudal, and after the feudalism, capitalism follows. Capitalism follows feudalism. So a revolution that could happen and happened was a bourgeois revolution. And it wasn't that easy to do the bourgeois revolution too. So if we think about the works of the according period, of that period of time, Lenin speaks about the hegemony of proletariats of the bourgeois revolution. Hegemony is not a dictatorship of the proletariat at all. What is it, hegemony? So if Comrade Anokhin here comes up forward and will go in avant-garde, he will be a hegemon. And we will follow him. He's big, and we will, sort of crouch and hide behind him. So he will be the hegemon, right? And revolution is a bourgeois in character anyway, in its character. So the bourgeoisie couldn't, even the bourgeoisie itself couldn't, in those conditions, couldn't walk or go in the front lines protecting its interests. It couldn't be in the front lines of protecting its interests, the bourgeoisie, because it mixed up with the nobles, with the aristocracy. They supported each other, and even then it was clear that the working class is coming up to the front, to the first role, starts playing the first role in the revolution, in the bourgeois revolution. And what have we got from that, from this revolution? Is that this discovery made by working class fastened itself, confirmed itself, and you can even look at the in Leningrad and St. Petersburg. When you come out of the Technological Institute metro station, when you come out of the metro there, on a corner of the 4th Krasnoarmeysk Street, in this house that stands there, there's a table that says, a sign, a tablet that says that here in 1905, a meeting of the Soviet of the workers of Petrograd happened, where Lenin took part, was present. In 1905, too, that happened. So that had spread really quickly, like fire. In all the cities and in the countryside. And the organization of the working class was very high, was very well managed, and we shouldn't just be proud of how powerful our working class is. It is powerful as a worker or working or workers organization, right? As workers, they're powerful, but not as a class. It's not powerful as a class. Why? Because the organization as a class organization is weak right now, still weak. And if the organization is weak, then clearly some big tasks, there are some big tasks we cannot solve if the organization is weak. And so, what results? What was the result of this revolution I'm talking about? It is considered, that this revolution, it is thought that this revolution didn't win, but hasn't won, but one certain bourgeois measure, certain bourgeois task it did fulfill. After this revolution, after the December armed uprising, the Tsar had to make a decree to create the Bulygin Duma, the so-called, the parliament, the first kind of parliament in Russia, modern parliament in Russia. So parliamentarism and parliament Russia had received parliamentarism and parliament not from the hands of the bourgeoisie, but from the hands of the working class. And that's a very interesting moment, a very interesting factor here. And then, just as it happens in history, always, and I think it's true for modern period too, it all sort of simmered down and froze. But in case with in the Soviets, things happened just the way they happen with mushrooms after the rain. And mushrooms, as you know, in biology, they are divided into two types. First, in the summer, you get several different mushrooms here and there, singular, right? And then, closer to autumn, somewhere close to autumn, you get a mass, lots of these mushrooms. So, same thing happened here. If 1905, the Soviets have not spread everywhere, not at all, but only to some cities. Then in this 1917, when the 1917 came, and the revolution there was when the Soviets were created rapidly. What kind of revolution was in 1917? Again, a bourgeois revolution. And the first Congress of the Soviets that took place here on the Kadetskaya line, Kadetskaya linie in St. Petersburg, on the corner of the street and the riverside of the Neva River. They've got a hall there, a room where we, for some time, meetings of the Committee of the Communist Initiative took place, of our committee. And our military comrades, whom this room belonged to, were our sympathizers and gave us this room. So there's this room where that Congress of the Soviets took place. Yes, and this Congress gave the majority to the bourgeoisie. So Lenin made a speech there and said that despite the fact that some bourgeois citizens also talked and spoke and said that there is no such a party, a kind of party that would be able to take power. Tsereteli said that. And Lenin got up and said, there is such a party, it exists. Meaning the Bolsheviks. And the Bolsheviks were a big force, big power by this time. And they had more members of the party, more people, than today in the Workers' Party of Russia. Much more. Because if we look at the 1910s, for 1914, 1915, there were already thousands of people in the party. Thousands. So for this reason, sometimes it seems that it does seem that people were illiterate and unenlightened and exploited, downtrodden in political sense. They were actually very advanced, including the workers of Russia. And the working class had very hard working conditions in which they worked, and a very long working day. But as a result, the result was that the Soviets were the result. And these Soviets, these councils, some think that it's enough to create the Soviets, and the Soviet power will rise everywhere, will come. They did create the Soviets. There was the first Congress of the Soviets. But did the Soviet power actually come? No. It was Soviet, but it was Soviet in its form and in its essence. It was a bourgeois power, where these Soviets were powerless addition. That, yes, they were gathered in production cells, in production, on factories, and they elected their representatives and so on. So when we think about an issue that is a central issue for today and for ourselves, it is important today not what the laymen think, the ordinary, not what the ordinary people think, the Philistines, the average, not what an average guy thinks. That's not important for us. It is important for us what we should actually do to revive the Soviet power. To do that, we need a revolution, right? Why? Because we live in a bourgeois country. Our power is bourgeois power. We've got a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. And this dictatorship is softened. It's the same story. It's softened by the course of our history from one hand. From the other hand, say Victor here and other comrades that took part in the struggle that we had in the period when this bourgeois revolution developed, when this bourgeois counter-revolution developed, bourgeois counter-revolution of today, lots of us on many positions, we have actually won, and things turned out in such a way that we've got a very good labor code as a result that we can use to solve our goals, including in the Article 130, it says the code that the state guarantees the increase of the level of real salary you know, the amount of things and services you can buy on your salary. And with your salary. Of course, nothing is done in this regard, but you can at least relate and mention this paragraph of the code, labor code. And in this code, there is an article that stipulates things about the cases when the salary was not paid. So if the salary is withheld, not paid to the workers, then the worker can stop his work or her work, stop their work. The workers can stop their work and write a letter to the administration, to the managers, and until the management pays the salary and writes a corresponding letter, that tomorrow the workers will get their salary. Worker can stay at the working place, which is our advice to do, which we advise to do, or the workers may if they want, they may not stay at their working place. But when they get the paper that says that tomorrow they will get the salary, then only then he can start working again, resume the work. And speaking about the rights that are stipulated in the collective agreements, they are basically boundless. Boundless in a sense that you cannot worsen stipulations or paragraphs in the collective agreements. You cannot worsen the position of the workers or the conditions of the workers, but you can make it better. So there are no limits. If you want, you can do your vacation 50 days. You make your vacation 50 days. Like the dock workers we consulted, they made their vacation 50 days long in the collective agreement. And I was there also on such a sad meeting when these big guys, big dock workers, were talking with their masters, with their bosses, the owners. And I was there on this meeting, and despite I told them they will lie to you anyway. They will do your vacations shorter, and your salary will be eaten by inflation. And the result will be that your vacations actually will be shorter. And instead of 50 days, working days, and their work is very hard, the vacation became standard again. Not again, but became standard just everybody else's. Standard length for everyone. despite their hard work in the docks of the dock workers. So for this reason, we, based on history, based on our experience, we know that to create the Soviets is the necessary requirement, it's a necessary condition, but it's insufficient, the creation of the Soviets by itself. But if these Soviets won't connect with the party of the working class, and if there is no such a unity, when the working class party is the main organizing power and the Soviets provide a mass participation of the workers in this whole movement, without this, it is impossible to restore socialism. So, right now we should think not how to win over sympathy of the ordinary people. We aren't concerned with this very much, honestly speaking, and it shouldn't interest us. We are concerned by this process of organization of the Soviets in the first place, and the process of the development of the party of the working class. As of today, if we count, we've got two parties exist in Russia, that two parties that have contained the dictatorship of the working class in their party's programs. But there are other parties that spoke something in this regard, but they ceased to exist as parties, and in this case, in this regard, we do have these two parties, or this kind of parties, but if you connect a party of the working class and people, the actual workers that are members of this party, and when they are connected with the Soviets, where the Soviets that have representatives from the production collectives, and the Soviets, if they are formed by the strike committees, they are able to stop production in any place, in any industry, at any moment. And all of this is actually stipulated, written in the laws. We had a very long period when everyone took part. In the process of adding to the labor code a line or article that without the decision of the according organs, of the according labor union organs, without the decision of without the decision of the strike committees, you cannot change, worsen the condition of the workers, working conditions of the workers. So in this regard, we do have some things prepared to revive the Soviets, to restore them, restore socialism. But as you understand, what is necessary is not yet sufficient, right? It's just necessary. So if there will be no Soviets, if they say that there is no such party, so no matter how many speeches you make, like right now I watch all those videos in the internet, there are so many people making speeches, speaking all kinds of things, and many correct things